Greetings! The researchers are here to present the chapters of 1 to 3 in regards to the study that we are about to discuss. In line with that, the title of our study is Rainergy, Visible and UV Ray Trapping Solar Window Panes as a Bridge to Renewable Energy Movement. This study mainly focuses on the development of a prototype that the group wishes to develop. The study also focuses on highlighting the encouragement of using renewable energy. Now, the group will start by presenting the background of the study.
Good morning, Ma'am and Sir. I'm Miss Aguayan, and we're going to discuss first the background of the study. Solar energy is a renewable source energy that can harvest directly for use in households, industries, schools, and hospitals using a variety of technologies. Next slide, please. Solar panels produce an estimated amount of 62.5 watts. That is enough to power over 12 million American houses. So the problem of that includes in the background of the study is the degradation or depletion of the ozone layer, which absorbs toxic rays and contributes significant or plays a big role to the occurrence of climate change. At the same time, lack of renewable energy method. According to Callery and Bailey 20 and 21, the ozone layer, which is found in the clouds, protects humans from sun's toxic ultraviolet or UV rays. Unfortunately, it has a hole in it that has an effect on the atmosphere. The ozone hole does not cause global warming, but it does have been affecting on the air circulation. In addition, renewable electricity is one of the few sustainable advantages available, since fossil fuel serves has uh, or have shown little relevance in this regard. The country's dependency persists a result of Asian's highest electricity prices. Next slide, please.
So, the ozone layer, which lies up in the atmosphere, shields people from harmful UV rays. However, ha- eh, there's a hole in it that has been affecting the climate. Sorry. In addition to the statement of Ms. Agohayon, it is mentioned that by the National Geographic Society 2017 that the conventional solar panels cannot generate electricity when there is no sunlight. So conversion of energy to electricity is not consistent. And the amount of electricity will depend on the weather. And besides, as mentioned by Callery and Bailey 2021, there is already a hole in ozone layer that affect the atmosphere circulation. Because of that, it negatively impacts the consistency rate of the solar panels. Therefore, it is vital to start a movement in using renewable energy. So next slide.
Thank you for that. As per what Ms. Agahayan and Sir Kayab have discussed, it is evident that there is a system problem regarding the depletion of ozone layer and limited source of clean energy. Thus, the reason why there is a need of movement to use renewable energy, according to E by 2017, the 2020 objective, wherein the government aims to triple its maximized usage in renewable energy, is not enough. Hence, challenging the government to provide more attention to the details of solar energy inventions. Energy efficiency is the key to reduce our impact on climate change and create sustainable energy in the future. Renewable energy is considered as one of the key competitive advantage. So for that, in conclusion, with the existing problem regarding the depletion of ozone layer and limited source of renewable energy, the researchers would like to maximize the use of visible light and UV to start a movement towards a renewable energy, for it is one of the most important actions that the world can take to reduce the impact on the environment. Next slide, please. I think you're muted, Jacob.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Sorry for that. Sorry for being muted. As for the introduction of the statement of the problem, it is generally believed how humanity is extremely dependent on non-renewable energy, thus being exposed to harmful hazards that may both agglomerate the environment, specifically causing seasonal fluctuations. At the same time, the usage of non-renewable energy is linked to the impairment of the blanket of the ozone layer, which is responsible for trapping harmful rays to minimize the possible occurrence of climate change. Using non-renewable energy is therefore implemented to find an efficient and convenient way of producing electricity to a visible light and UV ray converting window pane that is equipped with a dimming mechanism. It aims to propose an alternative source of energy that households may use, especially to those areas that are heavily exposed to sunlight. The research questions 1 and 2 will be elaborated by Alec Mendoza.
Wait, am I audible?
Yes.
Thank you for that, Jacob. Now, let me take the floor to present the entailed research questions in this study. Given that the means of this study is to find an efficient and convenient way of producing electricity through visible light and UV ray energy converting window pane, it is guaranteed that we should ensure this prototype will cater our target recipients efficiently and effectively. Answering our two research questions will help us identify if it has passed the standards or not. The first research question: what is the prototype's average energy capacity and the theoretical voltage that can be produced? This one will help us evaluate the average energy yield that will be measured in joules and the electrical power that will be measured in kilowatts per hour. As well, before the assemblage of the final prototype, this will let us determine the theoretical voltage, energy, power, and the prototype could attest. Going on to the next research question, that is how cost effective of service the prototype could cater in terms of the wait the energy yield per hour, that is E, small letter E, big letter P and H together, and electrochromic layers dimness, I'm sorry, that is VED in this case, and the energy yield per square meter or EPS, that would be the amount of energy gathered with the relation to the size of the prototype. A correlated sample t-test will be applied to classify and effectively identify the functionality of this prototype, which then will be discussed in the later section. Now, let me call on Ms. Montet to lead us and discuss the scopes and the limitation of this study. Thank you.
So just like what Ms. Alec Mendoza stated, scope and delimitation will be discussed by me and Ms. Andrea. Next. For the scope, the study will be focusing on the development of energy converting window pane. The mechanism of traditional solar panels and window glasses will be considered in order to effectively apply its concept to the prototype that will be created. Add to that, the estimated voltage that will be produced by the prototype will be monitored. In line with this, the researchers will also analyze and study the probable result and measurement of the data coming from the proposed alternative source of energy.
Um, for the limitation, the study solely focuses on developing a visible light and UV ray energy converting window panes. Thus, other materials and methods that are irrelevant in creating the prototype will not be covered. On the same note, the life expectancy and total durability of the prototype is also not included in the content of the study. Furthermore, the researchers will disregard other factors that may affect the overall production of energy as well as other possible elements that will contribute to the efficiency of the prototype. For the significance of the study, it will be presented by Ms. Delmir.
Thank you, Andrea. For significance of this study, the window solar panel will use renewable energy sources such as light coming from the sun or the sunlight. It will give advantages and it will contribute to the economy, environment, society, technology, and advancement. And of course, it will help the future researchers that who wants to do research that are related to this solar panel. Next slide, please. Um, versus economy, in this research, using this panel it will help to the growth of the economy because since this panel will conserve electricity. Second is environment. Through this study, the researchers found out that the one of the advantages of using Windows solar panel is having no harm to the environment. Since renewable energy resources will be used, such as the sunlight, that wherein it will convert into an electricity, therefore it will help the environment to be healthy and reduce the um, climate change. Next is society, technology advancement, and future researchers this that will be discussed by Kyla Tasipit. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Diaz. For the society, the study's results will be extremely beneficial to society because they would educate people about renewable energy, about the technology that use it. The study's main goal is to raise awareness about renewable energy and encourage people to move from non-renewable to solar energy, resulting in a more informed society. For the technology and advancement, future innovators can benefit from the study's findings because they will be enlightened by the results, and they will be able to use the findings as a resource to further study the prototype and improve its utility in a similar future research study. And lastly, for the future researchers, this will act as a reference for prospective researchers as well as a guide for those who want to perform a study in the same field as the researchers. Furthermore, future researchers may be able to develop this analysis by coming up with a better method and techniques for the prototype. Next presenter, please.
After discussing Chapter 1, the researchers would proceed in discussing the review of related literatures in the study. The related literatures of the study is strategically divided into four themes, which would be thoroughly discussed by the researchers. Namely, the themes are convenience of solar energy, conversion process of visible light to renewable energy, reference mechanisms from present innovations, and a general background for renewable energy. Before discussing, this information will be synthesized to display the studies that features renewable energy, specifically the usage of solar energy and solar panels. The kinds of literature that would be presented will strengthen the credibility of the research. Now, following the order, the convenience of solar energy will be first discussed. Team 1, simply, in accordance with the article that Kerr 2019 and the United Nations 2018 had just suggested, the consistent and continuous growth in the technological sector had paved the way in making solar energy an alternative source of electricity. It is also stated how the usage of renewable energy proves to be cost efficient and long lasting according to the article that Energy Hub 2020 and Earth Choice Incorporated 2020 had claimed. As for the next team, Delmir Diaz would be the one to present it.
Thank you, Jacob. For the second theme, since renewable energy resources will be used, specifically light that are coming from the sun, the UV rays and visible light will convert into electricity, and that can happen with the help of solar energy conversion device, wherein it is a system that converts sunlight. According to U.S. Energy Information Administration added that by in converting sunlight, photovoltaic is also used, wherein it is a device that involves semiconductor materials. Aside from that, doping is also needed to convert sunlight into electricity, and in this, two silicon materials will be used, wherein N-type and P-type are involved. These two will be put together to produce electric field. In connection with that, the current flow will extract by a photovoltaic cell, wherein the current flow will go to an inverter that it can convert from direct current to alternating current, wherein it will go to different houses that will provide electricity. Next slide, please. Thank you.
Now, under the third theme, the presence of different technological advancement originating from solar panels were exhibited. There's a continuous evolution of the devices that makes use of solar energy, hence leads to a more efficient consumption of natural resources. According to Woodford 2020, electrochromic glazing or easy glazing and aurora renewable energy and UV sequestration or ORS adapted and used the concept of solar energy to power such technologies. In another article, Sage Glass 2018 explained the advantages of the mentioned innovative window that also considers the concept of visible light. Therefore, the studies display the restyling of solar converting technologies, which serve as a reference for future innovation. Next, Ms. Adria Baldoviso will present the following discussion.
Thank you, Ms. Samonte. For the fourth theme, renewable energy is a clean and inexhaustible energy which is safe to human and environment. Since it is harnessed from natural resources, the harnessing and usage of renewable energy has a long history dating back on the ancient times. For instance, according to COG 2020 and Shahan 2014, over 2,000 years ago, Greeks were already using the water wheel to grind wet into flour. Likewise, windmills use wind energy for food processing and production in Persia and the Middle East during 200 BC. On the other hand, during 672 BC, the ancient Chinese used to capture sunlight by utilizing curved mirrors to start a fire. As per current innovation, harnessing and using renewable energy has been easier. For instance, according to International Renewable Energy Agency 2020, geothermal resources cover a significant share of electricity demand in the countries like El Salvador, New Zealand, Kenya, and Philippines. Um, However, Ramrup et al. 2011 stated that tidal energy production is still in its infancy and there are very few commercial-sized tidal power plants operating in the world. Thus, engineers are working to improve it. In totality, renewable energy evolves in time and is constantly improved for better consumption. Um, the conclusion will be discussed by Mr. Sipit.
Thank you, Miss Andrea. To summarize it all, renewable energy has no negative impact on the climate, which is one of the many advantages of using renewable energy sources. It has a major impact on reducing the negative consequences of climate change. Humans can minimize air pollution, which causes greenhouse emissions that can cause climate change if they continue to use renewable energy. Furthermore, it reduces the damage to ecosystems caused by the use of fossil fuels, as well as the harm to the world in which people live, resulting in social and health benefits. Next presenter, please.
Thank you for that, Mr. Sipit. For the conceptual model of the study, it will be discussed by me and Ms. Mendoza. Next slide, please. Thank you. The conceptual framework of the study uses the input process output, or as we know as IPO model. In the input process, the researchers will gather necessary materials and equipment from different reputable sources for producing quality raw materials to be able to be successful with the expected output. As for the process, it will be discussed by Ms. Mendoza. Ms. Mendoza?
Thank you, Ms. Cabrera. Proceeding with the process, once the raw materials were gathered and equipments are ready, it will undergo pre-experimentation through compatibility tests and functionality check. During the process, the prototype's theoretical voltage will be determined to acquire a variable for the data, of which will be needed for the final product to function properly. Observation of the mass output, electricity that hybrid solar inverters can accumulate will also be recorded. And us researchers will determine its capacity to supply a household and adapt its features in our product design. Testing in several trials will be conducted to generate descriptive conclusions and numerical data based on the prototype's performance. And then this will be compared to the theoretical performance that was calculated prior to the assemblage of the prototype. And interpretation of the data will be used to test the hypothesis and compare the series trials of the product. That comprises the process and the researchers will be doing for the entire study of the prototype. Upon the final phase of the study, we'll give the output to be discussed by to be di- to be discussed to us again by Ms. Cabrera. Thank you.
With everything that has been mentioned in the input and process, the data gathered will be used for performance of the prototype along with its maintenance. Thus, the output will result in having solar-dependent energy producing window pane with a dimming mechanism that has pass-through of quality standards. That's all for the conceptual. Next.
Good morning again. This is the hypothesis that the researchers come up with. There is no significant difference in the efficiency of solar window panes adapted from the solar panes with regards to the usage of renewable energy. This is no, there is no improvement in terms of converting energy.
Um, in addition, it cannot store enough energy for the future use of the household. It is still required to put many solar window panes in order to power up the whole house, which is also the same with the solar panels. So, next presenter.
These are the following terms used in the study that have been defined operationally. It is all just to give the audience a clear understanding about the variables that are mentioned in the study. Furthermore, I will now start in discussing the chapter 2. To start, in this chapter, it would thereby discuss the research methodology, the research aim to present the following in detail: the research design, research locale, the procedures of gathering the data, schematics, and the cost analysis. Mainly, this chapter would focus on showing how the data was collected, gathered, and analyzed. As for the research design, in this section of the study, the research approach that will be employed in the study is a mixed research method, a combination of qualitative and quantitative research. Moreover, an experimental research design would also be utilized in the study. As Form Plus Blog 2021 defines it, experimental research design is a scientific approach to research where one or more independent variables are manipulated and applied to one or more dependent variables to measure their effect on the latter. Whereas the solar window panes and natural light would act as the independent variables, and having the average electricity output is the dependent variable. In line with that, the researchers deemed to develop a prototype design that is equipped and dependent on renewable energy. That is, solar energy and UV sequestration will at the same time observe energy consumption. To synthesize, a mixed research method will be employed as a research approach, and an experimental research design will be utilized. As for the research locale, simply the study will be conducted at the Technological Institute of the Philippines located at number 938 Aurora Boulevard, Cubao, Quezon City. As to why, the researchers see the place that was chosen as a reliable and efficient method in providing necessary information. The school's library and laboratory will be the ones to aid the researchers in enhancing the study. Furthermore, the research will be conducted in the following timeframe, which is April 2021 to May 2021. As for the data gathering procedures, it will be then started by Kyla Tasipi.
Thank you, Sir Jacob. I, Ms. Tasipit, together with Ms. Cabrera and Ms. Garganera, would be discussing the data gathering procedures. Now that the method for collecting the data has been broken down, the researchers will break it into 3 steps. As a result, the following procedures are mentioned. The first step is the preparation of materials. The research will require a handful number of materials in order to perform and complete all of the required procedures in order to create the prototype. To begin, the prototype's main and most important part is the glass pane, which is coated with a tint that will be applied to the window's railings. The trap light was converted into renewable energy with the aid of a chip inverter. Finally, wires will be installed in the window frame to absorb electrical currents for power generation and conversion to renewable energy. Next presenter, please.
Thank you, Ms. Kyla. For the procedure of creating the prototype, the researchers came up with two components. being the design and construction of the prototype, and 2 being the engineering process of the window pane. In designing and constructing the prototype, the researchers aim to create a prototype that converts visible light and UV ray into renewable energy. To be able to achieve this, a pane of glass in the window will be created, which will be responsible for sequestering visible light and ultraviolet rays. A special window would be enforced to create a solar window, while at the same time put in a glass pane that has a coat of tint which would be engineered to absorb maximum amount of energy. The railings of the prototype will contain a chip inverter that will convert the trapped light energy into removable energy. And upon converting, a wiring that is placed in the frame of the window will capture the electrical current to provide power. As for the engineering process of the window pane, the prototype will be modified. It is the goal of the researchers to undergo various experimentation where multiple laboratory trials will be conducted to be able to pinpoint the exact type of glass that will be used to absorb the energy directly coming from the sun, visible light and ultraviolet rays. Thus, this process will be able to give ameliorations in figuring out the feasible voltage that will be used for the prototype. For the last gathering procedure, Ms. Garganera will discuss it. Ms. Garganera.
Thank you, Ms. Cabrera. Now for the prototype testing, observations with regards to the materials and the procedure will be carried out. And further experiments will also be conducted to which help seek in wherein the right glass which can absorb both UV lights and the visible lights. And other than that, necessary examinations and inspections will also be administered to ensure the quality of the chosen materials. And now, for the cost analysis, Ms. Valdiviso will take over.
Um, Thank you, Ms. Garganera. The cost analysis will be discussed by Ms. Samonte and I. Cost analysis is a process of evaluating the expenses of an implemented project. In this study, the researchers provided 3 tables exhibiting the cost analysis for the creation of the prototype. Um, Next slide, please. The first table exhibits the cost analysis of the production of solar window panel. The table consists of 4 rows containing the materials used in creating the prototype, the description or measurement of the materials, quantity, cost of materials per piece, as well as the total cost. It also exhibits the total manufacturing cost from the materials used, electricity consumption, chemicals used, and laboratory apparatus. Um, the second and third table will be discussed by Ms. Samonte.
So for the second table, it displays the breakdown of the wattage usage. The table presents the necessary apparatus and used when creating the prototype as its corresponding wattage. Add to that, 2 formulas were utilized to come up with the total cost. Additionally, the provided kilowatt per hour rate in the Philippines was considered while computing. The result contributed to the overall manufacturing cost. Next. So for the table 3, it also enumerates other materials and its corresponding prices. The quantity of laboratory apparatus and chemical use were specified in order to get an accurate total cost. Moving on, the schematic diagram will be explained by Ms. Alec Mendoza and Delmer Diaz.
Thank you. That was very informative, Ms. Samantha and Ms. Valdiviso. Now let me present to you the schematic diagram of the prototype. Here's the whole schematic diagram, as you can see, but we opted to divide it into 2 sections, so it should be zoomed and maximized on the screen for more effective discussion. Maybe turn it to next slide, please. Thank you. As we can see, the process of harnessing energy starts with the strike of natural light to the layers of our prototype. In here, it will first tolerate the plexiglass, a thin glass mixed with acrylic that serves as a protection to our core layers. The electrochromic layer is responsible for the dimming mechanism of this prototype. As you can see there, the next step is bronze with jag or dotted lines. This indicate that the only setting that there is one setting, and that is either the manual dimming or the or the automatic dimming is selected or active at a given time, and that is preferred by the user. Manual dimming means that the dimming of the windows is initiated by a signal from the user. However, automatic dimming means the window will dim automatically based on the intensity of radiance it gets from the sunlight. The dimming mechanism feature of this prototype requires energy to progress, but does not continually need energy while in use. The only time it needs energy is when the dimming intensity or phase changes to different levels. Thus, inferring that automatic dimming would consume more energy gives you a correct point. Progressing on, let's say, for instance, the manual dimming setting is active and say the window is 50% dim and it is static. And then the energy received by the electrochromic layer will progress to the layer where it will be translated to direct current. And then the layer is not compromised or composed entirely of solar cells, but it has UV sequestration feature, where higher energy electromagnetic waves like UV rays are reflected back to as visible light. So it would progress to solar cells and be converted as well to direct current energy. And then the other half of this semantic technique, let me give the floor to Miss Diaz to show us how the prototype CMOS works. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. So next is solar cells and UV sequestration. So since the prototype is not like the ordinary solar panel because it can convert UV rays into a usable energy. In solar cells, just like the typical solar panels, it will use solar energy such as visible light and it will travel quickly to the DC breaker. On the other hand, the UV sequestration, it will convert first the UV rays into lower electromagnetic radiation, which is visible light. Under the UV sequestration, we have two types of glass. We have glass for Borealis and glass for Australis. These two are the reference film in recognizing and absorbing the UV rays depends on the frequency, on frequency is closer. And then it will now go under the sequestration synthesis wherein the UV rays will be converted and reflected as visible light. And then it will go to the DC breaker where the visible light from the solar cell and converted visible light will meet. And then it will travel to solar charge controller and into the another DC breaker. The visible light will simultaneously travel or go to the storage battery and in an inverter. In the inverter, the visible light will convert into an alternating current and then it will distribute as a current flow wherein it will come to the power sources where it can now use as an electricity. And next presenter, please.
So, in statistical treatment, the objective is to compare the three related variables, which is the voltage yield per hour, voltage yield with relation to electrochromic layers dimness, and the energy yield per square meter. So, the data results will be analyzed using the correlated sample t-test, which is used when the samples involve the related pair of variables according to HIAS 2020.
Mean 1 and 2 according to the formula or the averages of both variables. SD stands for sample difference standardization, on the other hand, and will be used to represent the size of the pair difference or the sample size. With the degrees of freedom, the df is equal to n minus 1, determining the outcome value. To summarize, the outcomes of this method will be used to interpret the prototype's efficiency method. Thank you.
And that would conclude the presentation of chapters 1 to 3. Thank you for listening. Again, we are group 3 of 12 STEM A2.